Hello, thank you for asking me to address you on this very important day, Veterans Day 2021. My name is Brad Youngman and I am the lead law enforcement officer for the Daviess County Public School System. I'm also a proud veteran of the United States Army. In fact, we have several on our DCPS police staff that are veterans, and I'd like to take a moment to recognize each of them and thank them for their service. Officers Gary Mattingly and Officer Paul Mattingly are both currently serving in the United States Army Reserve. Officer Gary Klee is a veteran of the United States Air Force. In fact, if we think about it, several of our DCPS staff members are veterans, as well as many of your all's family members and staff members' family members. So we want to thank them all on Veterans Day. A veteran is a person who has served in the military. Veterans Day began as Armistice Day in 1911. The purpose of the holiday then was to celebrate the end of World War I. World War I was a horrible, horrible war that involved 4 years of fighting over 12 countries and saw the deaths of over 16 million people. The United States of America was very glad when that war was over, so they created a day to celebrate that armistice. In 1938, Congress changed the name of the holiday to Veterans Day, and the purpose was changed not just to celebrate the end of World War I, but to celebrate all veterans of all wars. To this day, we celebrate Veterans Day on November 11th, and we have since that time in 1911 to celebrate the contributions that our veterans, men and women of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard make to our nation's defense each year. So there's a little bit of history about Veterans Day and how it began. Now let's talk about veterans and what makes them special. Veterans serve others. Veterans protect our country. Veterans train and volunteer to serve in the military in case they're ever needed. Sometimes they're sent overseas to defend our interests in other countries. I joined the U.S. Army while I was still in high school, my senior year in fact, in 1998. I served until my retirement from the Kentucky Army National Guard in 2019. It seems strange to think about it now, but at the time that I joined the military, it was a relatively peaceful time. Our country was not at war with anyone. In fact, we had not had a very big war in quite some time. My ideas of war and what my military service would look like were just that. They were just ideas. I grew up knowing that both of my grandfathers had served in World War II and that my father had served in Vietnam. While I was a child, I saw on TV the U.S. invasions of Grenada, Panama, and then the conflict known as Desert Storm took place. But when I joined, I didn't know what was going to happen. In fact, I'd been in the Army for over 3 years when the attacks of 9/11 happened. And that day changed my life and the lives of many people forever. I don't think anyone knew on that day that we would be entering the longest war that our nation had ever been involved in, just starting the following month. But that's what happened. And my military career and the military careers of everyone I knew were changed from that point forward. Later that year, my unit was sent to Afghanistan. As that deployment was ending, our country attacked Iraq and opened another chapter in the war on terror. A few years after that, I would be sent to Iraq as well. I'm very proud of the things that we accomplished in both of those countries. At the end of the day, our being there made the lives of the people in those countries better. Veterans aren't responsible for what happens after the war. That's someone else's job. But veterans are who made the change possible so that those people could have hope and those people could hopefully do something better in the world. My experiences in the military will forever be linked to the attacks of 9/11. And it's for that reason that I see the world differently. I have kids of my own now. And it's tough the way that you all are growing up these days. There's a lot of disagreement. It seems like everything we do is posted on the internet, and it oftentimes leads to immediate arguments. There's not much civil discourse when it comes to disagreement. And that's a shame. I remember what the country was like before 9/11. I remember the days after 9/11 especially well. Our country came together. We had a common purpose. We were scared and we had been knocked down. The attacks on that day led to the deaths of 3,000 innocent men, women, and children. And it was a very uncertain time. But we knew for sure that working together, we would get back up, we would fight back, and that we would win. Our military performed brilliantly after the days of 9/11. And I think that's one of the most important lessons that we can take from Veterans Day. Our country does its best work when we work together. We are still the greatest country on earth, and when we work together, what we want to accomplish, we cannot be stopped. As I said earlier, veterans are volunteers. We volunteer to serve. We volunteer to train and to be ready. And oftentimes we're asked to go do our job. Sometimes all we know is that we're being asked to do something and that it's going to make the world a better place. It's going to keep our country safe. It's going to keep each of you safe. We want to protect our loved ones, to protect each of you, and even to go overseas and protect strangers who we never met. When our country's at our best and we're working together on a collective task, that's what we're going to do. Oftentimes, our military is asked to lead the way in other efforts, whether it's filling in during a pandemic at a hospital, or rescuing missionaries if they've been kidnapped in other countries, or assisting a community after a devastating flood. You can rest assured that your military and your veterans are there for you. Most Americans profess to truly love veterans, especially on days like today or on Memorial Day. It's important to remember that veterans should be honored 365 days a year because they're out there every day working for you, serving you, and keeping you safe. Many veterans have seen combat and some have had bad experiences. That's part of the sacrifice that they make for you. They, of course, will never forget the sacrifice made by their friends, and none of us must ever forget the sacrifice that our Gold Star families have made on our behalf. They will continue on with the loss of a loved one, the resulting hurt that cannot be repaired. Our debt to these heroes can never be repaid, but it must never be forgotten. For many of our veterans, our nation was important enough that when they volunteered to serve, they knew that they would endure sleepless nights, sub-zero temperatures, hot, humid conditions in jungles, and possibly combat the loss of limb or death. Military spouses endure career interruption, moving from one household to another, and usually shoulder a disproportionate task in parenting. Military children have uncertainties of their own. They don't always know where their mom and dad are going. They don't know when they'll be back. They have to make new friends every time they move. These are all sacrifices that military families make on our behalf. So that is what today is about. It's about honoring veterans and the sacrifices they make, and knowing about the service that they provide. Stephen Ambrose once wrote, "America's wars have been like rungs on a ladder, by which it rose to greatness. No other country has triumphed so long, so consistently, or on such a vast scale through force of arms." It's often been said that without veterans, our country might be speaking a different language. And it's hard to say what type of alternate history our country may have taken, but one thing is for sure, our veterans are here to serve, and without that service, America would not be as great as it is. Those who defend us from our enemies must be honored, whether their service was in Baghdad or Beirut, whether it was 10 years ago or 50 years ago. We must never forget the sacrifice and service that they provided. So when you see a veteran, thank them for their service. Veterans like to hear that. Veterans have great stories. If you have time, you should ask them some of those stories. They'd love to share with you their experiences. You may be surprised what you hear from somebody who was, before Veterans Day, just your neighbor, or maybe just somebody that worked at a store that you go to all the time. You may be surprised to find out some of the things that they've accomplished. Dwight Eisenhower, it has been noted, said that he was more proud of his service as a soldier than his service as the President of the United States. While relatively few soldiers ever make the rank of general or even make it to the presidency, we do share a very common bond that we are all proud of our service. This pride is no more evident than when it's on display in the obituary section of the newspaper each day in every corner of the country. No matter what subsequent achievements a veteran has made, it is always mentioned, usually in the first paragraph, that the person who passed away was a veteran and what service they were involved with. As you get older and grow up, I would urge each of you to consider service as part of your future. The military is not for everyone. However, there are other ways to serve, whether it's through volunteer work, being involved with local nonprofits and charities, or by just helping out in your neighborhood or your community. Military service is what keeps us free and safe, but service to others is what makes our country great. In closing, I will leave you with this. Fewer than 10% of Americans have earned the title of veteran, and far less than 1% are currently serving to keep our country safe. We owe them a lot of gratitude, and the freedom that they provided us and the great country they provided us, you can't put a price tag on it. But we owe it to them to never forget them, to thank them, and to honor them when we can. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today on Veterans Day 2021. Stay safe, and God bless America.